Hi there, welcome back to Clarifying Your Niche, Lesson 2, How to Find Your Niche. You might be thinking, hey, I already know what I'm knowledgeable at and what interests me. This is going to be easy. And while that might be true, finding your niche in a market like TPT can be a little tricky. So let's go ahead and dig into how to find your niche. Let's start with this brilliant bit of info. Identify your niche and dominate it. When I say dominate, I just mean work harder than anyone else could possibly work at it. And that's important because you're going to find that when you're on TPT, there's going to be a lot of people and other sellers within your niche. And you're going to see that to stand out, you're going to have to do something different than they do. Or you might find that you are one of the very first people in that niche area. And to keep standing out, you're going to have to keep doing things different because once people see that it's a popular area, they're going to start jumping on the bandwagon and doing the same things. So make sure you are always staying ahead of the crowd. We are going to be discussing what are your interests, what are your passions, and how to find your niche. You might be thinking, aren't interests and passions the same thing? But they're not. And we're going to go over how they're different and how combining both of them together will give you what I call the golden opportunity. The first thing you need to do is identify your interests. And this is one of the most important parts of finding your niche. In fact, when I started on TPT, I didn't really know where I was going. And one of my very first products I ever made was science related. And it was something I called Moon Phases Foldable. And I'm not going to get into the trademarks and why I shouldn't have even been using the term foldable, but I was new and I was learning. And it was something that I thought TPT needed at the time. However, anytime I thought making something science related, I started to feel faint and my heart would beat really fast and it just didn't sound fun. And that's because science isn't something I'm knowledgeable at. When I taught it when I was in the classroom, I would have to really study those lessons and really know my curriculum well because it didn't come easy to me. I quickly learned science wasn't my niche and that my interests were more around math and language arts. So make sure you identify an interest that you really like. You might see something that is needed on TPT, but if it's not something you like, I don't want you to do it. Make sure it's also something you enjoy doing. I want you to pause this video and I want you to take time to write a list of the top 10 things that interest you in education and teaching. You can use your TAB workbook, which stands for Teacher, Author, Brilliance, and you can write down those 10 interests. And you might even want to write more than 10 because you might find that those 10 interests are things you don't want to focus on or are already really well represented on TPT. Now we're going to be talking about identifying your passions. And that might sound very similar to interests, but when I think of interests, I think more of my hobbies. So I'm thinking of things I like to do for fun, like reading a book, watching a show on Netflix, knitting. Maybe I really enjoy playing games with my family, which is something I really do enjoy. It might be that you like to go for walks or hike in the mountains. Interests are more your hobbies, while your passions are things that define who you are. So my passion is education, and I will never get sick of learning about new topics, teaching to other people. Anything in the education world is something I've always enjoyed. I've loved it since I was young. And when I got into my career as a teacher, I found that not only is my passion education, my passion is teaching language arts and math. That is what I truly love and I don't get bored of. So when you're thinking of passions, the golden opportunity is when your interests and passions collide. So for me, I love to play games and I love to make learning fun. And so when my passion for math and language arts is combined with gamification in the classroom, that is what I would say is a golden opportunity. So you're looking for your golden opportunity. What are your passions? What do you live for? Ask yourself these questions. How do you spend your free time? What do you look forward to do when you are not doing it? And what topics do you like to learn about? And are you willing to commit all your free time to this topic. And that is an important one because when I started on TPT, I did not see myself doing this for 9 years, almost a decade. I don't know what I was imagining at the time, but that's where I am now. And this is something that could be years in the making. And so you want to make sure you can dedicate all your free time to it. And I do. I dedicate my nights, my free time when my kids are at school, doing this niche on TPT. So you want to make sure it's something you love and are willing to do for a very long time. Now, finding your niche. How are you going to find your niche? I want you to look for problems to solve in the education world. What are things that don't have problem solved yet? Take a moment and look at the list of the interests you just created, that top 10 list. You might have more than 10, but look at that list. How can those interests solve a problem in the education world? Is it a problem already solved and fully saturated on TPT? Because if it is, maybe don't do that interest and skip to another one. Yes, you can get into those topics that are already well saturated on TPT, but we're going to get to that in a minute where you're going to have to really stand out and make it very different. So I want you to find an interest that really isn't out there yet. Ask other teachers and friends in the education world what problem they need solved right now and what they would love to have in their classroom. In fact, that is how I found my niche. I decided that, you know what, there's a lot of great lessons on TPT, but how can we make these lessons fun and educational? And that's how I solved a problem that I was seeing in the education world. So ask yourself, what problems can be solved with the interests that I want to look into? If the problem seems daunting but doable and it interests you, my biggest tip is you need to do it. The hard and challenging ideas are the ideas that pay off in the end. If someone else doesn't want to do it, but they really want it, then that's why you need to do it. One of my very first products was what I called Language Arts Centers for Upper Elementary. When I created that on TPT, there wasn't really a lot of language arts centers for upper elementary students. It was something that was needed, but no one wanted to do because it took a lot of work. It took me a whole month to create one packet, and the whole bundle has 9 packets included. So at the end of that 9 months, I would laugh and say, I just birthed a product because it took me 9 months. It was something no one wanted to do because it took a lot of time, and in the end, it paid off. Now, that's not really my niche anymore. I found something else that suits me better, but that was a good jumping point and a good way to test the waters to see what my audience needed and what problems needed to be solved. And with that, experiment with different topics. It's okay to make several different products on different topics and to see what sells well. In fact, you can look at the data and your statistics, which is a great way to see where to find your niche on TPT, and see which products are selling the most and which products have the highest conversion rates, because those are the products you should be focusing on. When you see those are the ones that are selling well, because that tells you there isn't a big market or audience for those products and those ideas. While you want finding your niche to look more like this, your idea in a straight line to success, chances are it's going to look more like this, where you have your idea, it doesn't work out, so you come up with a new idea, which also doesn't work out. And then you come up with another idea, a third idea, a fourth idea, a fifth idea, a 10th idea, until you finally find success. I want you to know that you can find success on TPT, and having your niche market will help you do that. TPT is more of what I like to call a marathon, not a sprint. And if you put in the time and effort, you will find success. Having a niche is the very first step in taking your business from something basic that doesn't really stand out to something brilliant that people are going to love and come to you for, and you will find success. So let's find your niche and let's figure out how you can get that golden opportunity and get your passions and interests combined to find that niche market that takes you to a brilliant business.